Okay. Super. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is not a scientific paper. View from industry. For a few years now, through the back end of CSIC 1 and all of CSIC 2, I've had the privilege of being on the steering group. Discussion that happens 3 or 4 times a year, and over 2 or 3 years, there's been a discussion around business case and uptake, so forth. And a piece of work about 2 or 3 years ago with a couple of members of that group. Encouraged to get into one of these conferences, so I'll apologise now if I'm saying stuff which is just pretty obvious and old hat to anyone in the room, and I hope it's even if it's just a small amount of use for anyone, then that's a step forward. What's happened to the changes? Is this it? Yeah, okay. So yeah, thank you. So in our work in industry, whenever we're submitting a bid or a proposition for funding, we start by focusing on outcomes and benefits rather than the technology. What's the journey? How is this going to help the ultimate end user? So we don't think about Highways England or Tideway or whatever, Network Rail. We think about the people on the trains or the people drinking the water. So they're the end users. So this is the challenge. So there's lots of complicated, complex new builds going on. CSIC's done a great job of engaging with a lot of the flagship major new projects going on around this country, at least. There's a vast amount of ageing existing assets out there, as we all know, and with big challenges of constrained funding, ageing, and rising demand. So those are the, as in our asset management activity, those are the generic 3 challenges we're constantly doing battle with and helping customers move forwards in spite of these challenges. So the opportunity is enormous, clearly, and we all see that. This is a fantastic conference. There's lots of people. There's loads and loads and loads of science and technology. So my interest is how we go from this to far more uptake. And that's we've been wrestling with that at the steering group for some time. This is not the magic, pull a big rabbit out of a very small hat. This is a little bit of the answer, perhaps 1 or 2 jigsaw puzzle pieces of the answer. Right. So the problem there, is that's probably something in my poor PowerPoint, actually. I shouldn't say 10 there. But we need, at the bottom line, the word compelling and business cases is the killer issue. That's the important point. So, right, let's crack on. So this is the way I wanted to just run through things. I'm doing the scene setting. We'll talk a bit about, this is really just checklists and so on. There's nothing earth-shattering or brand new about this, but it's to try and share the approach and so on. And a few examples. So we take the view that all our clients, 90% of our business, 90% of the Jacobs business is design, right, and project and program management. It's design stuff across all the sectors of infrastructure you can think of, and 10% is a cross-cutter. A lot of that is around managing assets, operating assets. We run about 1/3 of the motorway network in this country, for example. We run Atlanta Airport. We run stuff for NASA in America. A selection of things like that, and we do a lot of consulting in getting better at asset management. But all our clients, all the 90%, they're all asset managers because they've all got assets already. So we're not only doing project every now and again when a new thing's needed. And so those customers are using their assets constantly to serve their ultimate customers. And I'm trying to get my colleagues to realise that all the clients that we serve as designers in that major part of our business are actually serving asset managers, and they need to get that challenge. Business cases are informed principally by benefit cost ratios, and then also some financial parameters, internal rate of return and other things. So the can be typically will come as savings to the business and various indirect routes, and that's the sort of stuff I'm going to go through in a minute. So how does all this stuff, the smart infrastructure and construction, help? It improves the business case, the business benefit cost ratio by reducing the cost or risk of the investment and by adding to the benefits. So over and above a piece of, a solution, making it smarter does those things. Pretty straightforward stuff. The overall objective here is that compelling business case. So very simple terms, but I'm just going to run through lists of and as examples. Direct cost savings in capital expenditure or operating costs, and a lot of opportunity for consequentials. I'll give one or two examples of those, and just what I've called other. That will become obvious. That's the stuff that's harder to put money to. There's a lot of that. So just working around that little. This is quite a big one. From a business point of view, if you can push back the need for the next capital intervention, that will normally be a big hit. So most of the O&M stuff is small compared to an in-year or in 2 or 3 year big project capital intervention. So that's always attractive. And then there's lots of stuff from CSIC or the other institutions that are presenting at this conference around these things. So simpler, cheaper designs, that if we can show that a design can be leaner, then obviously it's cheaper, it's quicker, it's safer, there's less disturbance to other things whilst it's being built, and so on and so on. There's a big saving around that. Cleverer work methods, so that enables us to be quicker, have less perhaps less temporary works, have less people involved. So you get the general idea. Better planning. There is a massive opportunity. There's still a lot of rework done in the construction industry by designers. A number of times, we like to think we're a great engineering firm. We still get design wrong, and we have to rework stuff from time to time. And it's incredible how people think it's seemingly okay to redesign something because there's been some things we got wrong, and yet they don't want to do good planning in the first place. Doing good planning is far cheaper than lots of reworking. So, and then these are some of the other kind of sort of perhaps more slightly financial issues around some overrun. Some contracts will bring penalty costs. There's the cost of the finance that the contractor has normally to find in order to finance the cash flow, and project or longer term insurances. So we see real instances where adopting a smarter, a more asset management centric approach is bringing down insurance premiums. So that's an area where your work could be relevant. So in the operating costs, handover. So I think quite worked, well discussed through the BIM agenda. If we get a more integrated and planned and managed, proper handover, which traditionally all over the years in industry, the resurvey, putting people at risk on motorways, all that sort of thing reduces. So there's a big saving there. These are kind of quite key areas. So I hope everyone understands the difference between reactive and planned maintenance. So if we can, the reactive one is the component of maintenance which is not planned for, and where organisations typically start when we go and see them, and they know they need to improve their asset management overall. So if we can just get the team of people that do maintenance, this is when the public something on the website saying there's a pole outside my house, or the lights have gone down in the road, or anything like that. That's thickened up. That's a sort of a general I'll come on to explain the model there, where what I call cost avoidance. So if we can actually say, fine, we see we know using the previous, sticking to the roads and the previous papers scenario, we know what's going on in this length of road pavement. We know that at a certain stage in its life, it's likely to start showing the signs of deterioration, and we look out for them we're moving from a reactive approach. We can get in early and do something that's far cheaper. And it's very easy to say, totally obvious, but rarely done. And so there's a big opportunity around cost avoidance. for businesses and organisations. Planned maintenance gets cheaper by having the asset better performing in the first place. You have to be cleverer, simpler. As a result of all that, there's lots of follow-on benefits. Smaller teams, less spares, surprising how big an issue that is, unplanned and unmanaged spares, and less penalties if there's issues around perhaps penalties via trains not running on time or water quality failures. And that could get smaller if we can get all this right. The operator of a group of airports in Australia told me a few years ago that their insurance premiums have gone down by implementing asset management and being smarter. And that's actually a real instance. Great. We kind of collect stories like that to support the thinking. This was the piece I promised you, a little bit of just. The concept is if we wait until an asset goes right through its life cycle and fails and costs us, in this example, some real numbers converted from a project in America to pounds, loss of asset, replacement, in that case £45,000. The further back up that curve we can intercept this, we could be spending very little comparatively, and it's straightforward to propose. It's cost avoidance. We've turned that into a management process. So here's an example. The wind does a vast amount of testing on not just for space rockets but for airplanes, Boeing and Lockheed and others. Huge area, lots of assets and buildings. So $5 million a year was saved by actually doing this, but not just doing it, but managing it and getting it signed off at monthly board meetings. That's the bit that starts to round it up and show the stakeholders, especially the senior ones, that that something's succeeding. It's great to bring in all these technologies, but we have to win the hearts and minds very quickly. We have to get the business case agreed in the first place. We collect stories like that, but then when they're up and running, you need to actually demonstrate evidence quickly. Boards will be very impatient. So how do your techniques provide the evidence quickly? So that's what we're saying. The cost avoidance. There's two big savings, which is the cost of the work we didn't do. It's the obvious one. And then a load of operational disturbance, a loss of productivity that we didn't have to lose. And then that's actually a double negative because the cost of the little bit we did do. So that's, we're building that in more of our program. Great, thank you. I'll wrap up a bit quicker on the other ones. So these are the ones over here on the indirects, the consequentials. This is a huge area of potential. So this is delays to people going about their ordinary business, not being able to use the assets, etc. And then these are all the same. So I tend to group these three together. Less risk of harm to people. That's safety. Environment is harm to the environment, and that sometimes comes up. Harm to heritage. Some pancreastation was one of those a little while ago when we did some work for High Speed 1. Security, reputation is a surprisingly big one and growing, and goodwill, particularly if it's actually shown on the company financial reports. And this is the sleeping, and that's completely intangible, but that's what a lot of board members like. That love that one. Examples. I won't go through all, but there's. Did the original piece of work, what we did was to start to say, let's look at some of the CSIC, Kanish's nodding, he probably did most of these, and we looked to say, how do they illustrate the framework? And just drop them in and some of the other things. But what I've tried to do here is to sort of look at the staging. What are we actually doing, and how does that deliver benefits? And then finally, there's a variety of examples around it. These are just a number of other ones. I won't go through those, but wherever we look, we can put it to the outcome and the benefits. And then this is just what we do with some of the numbers, because this it's one thing to put it in a tick table, but that's not the end of the story. So this is actually from a piece of work I did for a customer in about 6 weeks, late March to the end of April. This was part one before going into an asset management transformation to help the customer at his research complex, campus actually, get better at asset managing all his equipment, some very complex advanced, across his facilities. And so we interviewed a load of people, figured out current condition and the risks to their business. And so we said, right, these were the ones we monetized as the potential savings. So becoming more planned, reactive, and that's the cost avoidance one again. Less risk of business interruption. So they do a lot of work preparing for a piece of research done, testing something in some experiment, and there'll be all kinds of people flying in from around the world, and you name it, and something breaks down or it just isn't available. Similarly, we have quite a lot of facilities that go out that get rented out to other third parties, and so impacts which were monetized. We looked at a 10-year appraisal period. This is the costs of the consult. That's the transformation cost. This is all pounds in doing the change to an asset management world, and then this is the cost of keeping that going, and the software as a service for some of the software tools. And it brought out the first scenario, or a deeper dive approach to asset management, cost-benefit ratios and benefit cost ratios and internal rates of return, and the whole thing went through the board very swimmingly. This bit was supported by these as well, saying there'll also be all those over and above this. So the great thing was this gets the whole thing into the language that the CFO and the COO and the CEO get. This is their world. So what we try to do is operate between as this sort of technology broker that gets it into that world, and try to find a way of hopefully making a small contribution to helping with more uptake. So how's that for timing, Kenichi?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.